Love takes no account of the evil done to it. It pays no attention to a suffered wrong. You don't even look at it. Just put it away. Say, oh, they made a mistake. Bless God. I forgive them. Now, how many of y'all know this love challenge of forgiveness is the toughest of all challenges of all? However, no marriage can ever succeed without forgiveness. Because the fact is, in a marriage, two people who are imperfect, who are in a practical sense sinners, are going to make mistakes. They're going to say things, do things, hurt each other. And if you don't learn to forgive and release it, then you're going to find yourself in a terrible prison house called marriage. In fact, Jesus painted a very, very vivid picture of the pain that unforgiveness brings. Sometimes we get the idea that if we don't forgive the other person, we hurt them. Truth is, in Matthew 18, Jesus showed us that forgiveness doesn't just hurt the offender, but it hurts the person who's offended. So in this parable, Jesus said, there was a man who owed a king $1 million. And the king brought him in and said, it's time to pay back what you owe me. And the man said, please, 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 I beg of you, have mercy on me. I'll pay it back when I get a chance. And the king's heart went out to him and said, oh, I forgive you your debt. Never mind. You're free. Don't even pay back. And he let him go. Later on, that fellow that was forgiven found an old friend of his who owed him a few bucks. He went up to him and started strangling him. Pay me back what you owe. And the man said, friend, I'll pay back when I get a chance. He said, no, pay now. And when the man couldn't, he threw him into jail until he could pay back what he owed him. Well, a man who worked next to the king saw what this ungrateful servant had done. And he went to the king and says, you remember that man you forgave $1 million? Well, you know what? I found him the other day who met an old friend who owed him a few dollars. And he threw him into prison because he could not pay him. And the king was furious. And he brought that old forgiven man back into the chamber. And he says, what is this I've heard? I forgave you $1 million, and yet you could not have mercy on your fellow servant and forgive him a few dollars? Then he looked to the jailer and said, take him, throw him into prison, and don't let him get out until he pays every dime. And Jesus said this, that is how my Father will treat each of you if you do not forgive your brother from your heart. Please don't bypass that statement. Jesus is making it very clear that the moral of the story is this. If you do not forgive others, you yourself will be thrown into prison. In other words, forgiveness blesses both the offender and the one who's been offended. Forgiveness is a win-win situation. The person that you're bitter toward, he wins and you win too. But if you don't forgive, then the Father will throw you into your own inner prison. I want you to imagine going inside of a prison. And there you see different people in various cells. There you find someone who wounded you as a child. And you think to yourself, I'm glad he's in that prison. He deserves it for how he treated me. And then as you look around the different cells, you might see a relative who wronged you in some way. And you snicker and think, yes, I'm glad they're getting their due. Then you see an old friend who betrayed you in prison. You think, yes, they deserve that. You might even see a parent, or maybe both, who were not very nice to you. And of course, you see very near you your own spouse in prison, and you think, she deserves this for how they treated me. And after looking at this prison, you tell the jailer, I'm tired of being with these stinking people. Get me out of here. And the jailer looks at you a bit puzzled. I told you, let me out of this prison. And then it hits you. Wait a minute. You're not visiting this prison. You're actually one of the inmates with all these people. And it hits you. You're there with no way to get out. But then the jailer surprises you. He comes up to you and hands you a full of keys. and says, you can get out if you want. And with excitement, you think, oh my goodness, this is great. And you pull out one of the keys to unlock your prison cell. But that key won't work. You pull out another one. That one won't work. You pull out a third, and you recognize, jailer, none of these keys work on my cell. And the jailer says, oh, no. I did not give you the keys to your cell. I gave you the keys to all the other people that you imprisoned. And once you let all of them go, then the owner of the prison will let you go too. Some of you are in a marriage, and like the joke I told you, you're crying thinking, 20 years in prison. Can I tell you why your marriage feels like a prison? Yes, because of who I'm married to. No. It's the fact that you won't forgive the person you're married to. Because without forgiveness, your marriage will never be happy. You'll never have joy in it. And some of you, it's amazing that the resentment you have it, and yet you cannot see what you're doing to yourself, to your marriage, to your partner, because of your own resentment and bitterness. Do you want to continue to have a marriage that is more like a prison? Or do you want a marriage that is more like heaven? It's up to you. But Jesus made it clear. In order to be out of this prison, you have to forgive. Because that prison house that I talked to you, it really does exist. But it exists in the chamber of your heart. For in your heart, you have imprisoned certain people who've hurt you. And in your heart, you have thrown them into a prison cell. And even your spouse, the one you vowed to love, is in one of those cells in the chamber of your heart. And I'm here to tell you, you don't realize it. Your own soul is inside that prison. And Jesus is showing us that forgiveness releases ourselves, not just the offenders. How long are you going to continue to be miserable in your marriage? See, ultimately, marriages do not end because or let me say this, marriages often don't end because of incompatibility. I know you hear, we're incompatible. Well, who isn't? I'm a man and she's a woman.